Imagine this for a second. Have you ever been in a situation where um, someone you really care about is just absolutely furious with you?
Oh, yeah, that thick tension in the room.
Right. The tension's just thick, the silence is deafening, you feel like you're twisting in the wind, like your stomach is completely in
Yeah, you're
knots.
scrutinizing every single tiny movement they make.
Exactly. And then finally, they soften. Their voice drops, they let out a sigh, and they let you back in. And that heavy, suffocating anger just clears like a storm breaking.
It's a huge shift.
It is. And in that split second, you feel this immense, rushing exhale of relief. It feels profound, right?
Yeah.
But what if that feeling, like that exact overwhelming rush that we so often define as passionate, intense love, is actually just a biological trick?
It's wild to think about, but it is arguably one of the most common and really most tragic biological misunderstandings that human beings experience, and it's one that costs people years, sometimes decades of their lives. That's really the core of the research we're unpacking for you today in this deep dive. It's about this dangerous conflation of relief and love.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the material we've been going through, specifically that incredible essay, What Was Never Waiting to Forgive You.
It does not hold back.
No, it strips the whole dynamic right down to the studs.
It really does. And our mission today is to decode the mechanics of this confusion, how it infiltrates romance, workplaces, spirituality, all of it, and then how to rewire ourselves for actual peace.
Right.
So I want to start at the very beginning, just with the raw biology of it all, because when I was reading this, it blew my mind that our brains essentially process someone giving us the silent treatment the exact same way they process, like physical danger.
Yeah, that is the foundational mechanism at play here. To understand this trap, you really have to look at how our bodies interpret the withdrawal of warmth.
When someone you're deeply attached to goes cold, or they get suddenly sharp with you, or even just, they stop looking at you with
So
affection.
that subtle shift.
Exactly. Your conscious, logical brain might just think, oh, they're annoyed, I forgot to take out the trash. But your nervous system,
Yeah.
it does not read it as a minor social slight.
It panics.
It reads it as primitive existential danger.
It's a survival threat, which makes total sense when you think about it in a modern context. It's like sending a super long, vulnerable text message to your partner, seeing the read receipt turn on,
The
and then,
absolute silence.
yes, absolute silence for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Your brain immediately bypasses logic and goes straight to, I am going to die alone.
Right, and that reaction, it isn't an overreaction. I think that's the key point. It is evolutionary programming working exactly as it was intended to.
Wow. Okay, break that down for me.
Well, what's fascinating is the historical context of that panic, because for hundreds of thousands of years, human beings only survived because of the tribe.
Right, we weren't out there fighting off saber-toothed tigers solo.
No, we were not the fastest predators. We definitely weren't the strongest. Our primary survival strategy was belonging. So in that prehistoric environment, being cast out of the group didn't just mean you were feeling a little lonely for a weekend.
It meant you were dead.
Quite literally, you were going to die of exposure or starvation. The tribe was your immune system. It was your shelter, your food source.
So your body literally remembers that legacy.
Exactly. So when warmth is withdrawn today, your nervous system interprets that coldness as an ancient death sentence.
That is so intense. You know what it reminds me of? It's like narrowly dodging a terrible car crash on the highway.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Like you swerve, you miss the other car by a fraction of an inch, and your body is just flooded with this massive shaking wave of adrenaline, and then comes the relief that you survived. What we're talking about here is essentially experiencing that massive trembling flood of survival relief, turning to the passenger sitting next to you and mistakenly assuming you must be deeply, passionately in love with them.
That is a brilliant parallel, because the intensity of the feeling is undeniably real, right? The relief is real.
The physiological response is totally real.
But the source of that feeling is fear leaving the room, not love entering it. And because that feeling of survival is so incredibly potent, it triggers this hardwired reaction.
What kind of reaction?
Well, when the primitive danger alarm goes off, something deep inside of you scrambles to survive. You start performing, you shrink, you over-apologize.
Oh, man.
You become suddenly, urgently compliant, doing whatever it takes to meet the unspoken terms of being let back into the tribe.
Oh, I have absolutely done the scramble. I will fully admit it. Like, I will accidentally eat the last slice of pizza, realize my partner actually wanted it, and suddenly I am doing the dishes, I am vacuuming the ceiling.
You're offering to donate a kidney.
basically, just to break the ice. It's funny in hindsight, but in the moment it feels like an absolute emergency.
It does. And notice what happens when you do that. You perform contrition, and it works. The person forgives you, they smile, the ice breaks.
The crisis is over.
Exactly. But underneath that relief, your body just learned a very dangerous lesson. It becomes muscle memory.
Like catching a falling glass before you even think about it.
Exactly like that. Muscle memory is built entirely from repetition. Every time you go small, every time you perform that exaggerated contrition and it successfully buys back the warmth, your nervous system reinforces this idea.
That shrinking is the lever to pull.
Right. It reinforces that shrinking is the most reliable tool you have to stay safe. It trains you to believe that smallness is the required price of admission for closeness.
Wow. Which means we are quite literally training ourselves that we have to be diminished in order to be loved. That is incredibly dark.
It is.
And if this is a hardwired nervous system response, I mean, we aren't just doing this at home in our romantic relationships. We bring our nervous systems everywhere. We bring them to the office, to family gatherings, everywhere.
It infiltrates absolutely everything. Think about childhood conditioning, for instance.
Okay.
Long before a child has the complex language to really understand what's happening dynamically, they observed how warmth is distributed by their caregivers.
Ah,
If affection is withheld as a form of discipline, or if it's doled out only when the child is quiet and compliant, they learn really early on that being good is a currency. They learn that love keeps office hours.
love keeps office hours.
Oof, that phrase from the essay just hits so hard.
It really does.
It implies that the door is only open if you have an appointment, and if you've brought the right paperwork.
Yes, it perfectly captures the conditionality of it all.
Yeah.
And that childhood template gets carried right into adulthood. You see it in workplaces or communities that are run by leaders who mete out approval like it's this scarce, precious resource. Oh, 100%. You see employees scrambling to get back into a volatile boss's good graces.
Tiptoeing around bad moods.
Right, and then feeling that huge, intoxicating rush of validation when they finally get like a nod of approval in a meeting.
Exactly.
Wait, hold on, though. Let me push back on this for a second because I want to make sure we're getting this right for the listeners.
Sure.
Let's look at that workplace example or even a relationship. If a boss is icy because I genuinely blew a massive client presentation, or, my partner is mad because I was actually being super inconsiderate, isn't that just a boundary?
It's a great question.
Like, shouldn't there be a sort of punishment economy to keep us in line and maintain healthy standards?
This raises such an important distinction, and it's a vital part of the research. This concept is absolutely not an argument against boundaries
Okay.
or structure or holding people accountable when they've been careless. The difference lies entirely in the function of the correction.
The function of the correction? What do you mean?
In a system of real, healthy devotion, whether that's a team at work or a marriage correction, functions purely as information.
Information.
Yes, it is feedback meant to help the relationship or the individual or the project thrive. It is not a toll you are forced to pay just to be allowed back into the room.
Ah, I see. So it's the difference between someone saying, here is where you went wrong, let's fix it, versus you must suffer and grovel before I will even acknowledge your humanity again.
Precisely. The counterfeit version relies on boundaries that only exist so they can be violated, which then allows for a dramatic scene of forgiveness.
Because the forgiving is the whole point.
Exactly, because that is where the illusion of intimacy is secretly being manufactured. A real boundary simply exists to protect the relationship. It doesn't need anyone to cross it just to prove it has power.
Reading through this material, I also realized that people project this exact same dynamic onto the universe, too.
Oh, absolutely.
This punishment economy shows up fundamentally in how a lot of people relate to faith or spirituality. There is this pervasive idea that grace has to be earned through suffering,
Yeah.
that you have to be profoundly, utterly humbled before you are allowed to be blessed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is deeply embedded in human history to personify the universe as a strict accountant.
Strict accountant, yeah.
We imagine a higher power that holds the largest chair in the room, keeping meticulous score, occasionally correcting us back into deserving the grace we supposedly already had.
Which makes no sense when you really think about it.
Right, because as the philosophers we're studying point out, rationed grace is an oxymoron. It's a contradiction in terms. A love that requires you to be on a leash, even if that leash is wearing holy robes, is still just a leash.
Okay, so we have this biological hostage situation playing out across our entire lives,
Yeah.
from the boardroom to our belief systems,
Yes.
but we don't call it a hostage situation. We call it passion. We call it amazing chemistry. So why do we constantly crave this cycle?
Because our culture is an enthusiastic, highly profitable accomplice in this misunderstanding.
Oh, absolutely.
Just look at the cultural mythology we are fed from the time we are children. Nearly every great love story, every blockbuster movie, every best-selling novel runs on exactly this fuel of near loss.
Right, it's the desperate chase through the airport security line.
Yes. Or the person who almost walked away forever but turned around in the rain at the last second.
Classic rom-com stuff.
We are taught to score dramatic reconciliation as the ultimate romantic triumph.
Right. Nobody writes a platinum-selling pop ballad about a steady couple who communicated their needs effectively, respected each other's autonomy, and then went to Target to buy paper towels on a Tuesday.
It just doesn't sell. Steadiness simply doesn't make for a thrilling third act.
It really doesn't.
And because we lack a cultural script that celebrates quiet, sustained peace, our nervous system gets its biological craving for that crisis and relief cycle validated by society.
So we think the panic is normal.
Worse, we're conditioned to view a quiet, peaceful relationship as a massive warning sign. We sit in the quiet and think, oh no, the spark is gone, the story has stalled.
But it hasn't stalled.
No, it just isn't building toward a dramatic rescue because nobody needed rescuing in the first place.
That cultural programming makes us so paranoid. Reading through the psychological breakdowns of this, it hit me that we are essentially setting traps for the people we care about.
We are.
We run this secret subconscious test underneath everything we do. And the question we're really asking is, will you love me even after I've proven I am incredibly difficult to love?
That is the insidious mechanism keeping the whole cycle alive. On the surface, testing someone sounds like a normal human request for reassurance.
Like we all want to know we're safe.
Of course. But the tragedy of this specific test is that it can only be answered by repeating the crisis over and over again. You have to manufacture a conflict, become difficult, push the person away, just to watch them choose to stay.
And it never ends.
No, because the entire system is built on testing the floorboards. The reassurance never actually lands. It evaporates the exact moment the relief washes over you.
And your brain just immediately starts plotting the next test.
Exactly.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The research draws this sharp, uncompromising line between the concept of being owned and the concept of being known.
Yes.
And I think this is the crux of the whole illusion. When I read it, I realized that what we often call protectiveness or like fierce loyalty is actually just ownership disguised as love.
Ownership and being known get confused constantly, especially if someone has never experienced the latter.
Right.
Ownership is entirely about control. It requires a person to be predictable, manageable, and accounted for at all times. Ownership feels deeply threatened by whatever it cannot track or dictate.
Which means the person being owned is the one doing all the scrambling. They have to basically amputate parts of themselves, their opinions, their friendships, their quirks, just to fit into the very specific, very small box the other person requires them to live in.
And notice the physical reaction to that dynamic. Ownership relaxes when a person gets smaller and easier to hold.
Wow.
The tension only leaves the room when you diminish yourself. Being known, on the other hand, operates on a completely different frequency.
How so?
Being known doesn't require predictability at all. It actually relaxes when a person becomes more themselves, not less.
That is a beautiful way to put it.
It can hold the version of someone that grows sideways, the version that changes their mind, the version that surprises it. If the closeness in your relationship only seems to deepen when you make yourself smaller and more compliant, I can assure you that isn't closeness.
It's just a leash getting shorter.
Exactly. You might be standing closer together physically, but you are not known. You are just owned.
That is just a staggering realization. To think about how often we mistake the tightening of a leash for an embrace.
It happens all the time.
So if we strip away the dramatic rescues, the airport chases, the constant testing, what is the actual foundation of belonging? Because the sources we pulled for this mention this concept of primordial mother myths, which, I have to admit, sounds intensely academic, maybe a little intimidating.
It does sound esoteric, I'll give you that.
Unpack that for me. What does a primordial myth actually look like in terms of modern psychology or, just on a Tuesday morning in my kitchen?
It's actually the most grounded concept we have. To explain what real devotion looks like, anthropologists and psychologists often look back to the oldest shapes of belonging human beings have on record.
Okay.
The primordial mother myths are the ancient foundational stories cultures told about the ground of everything, like the source of life. And across cultures, the unifying theme of that ultimate ground is that it never casts anyone out.
So it's essentially the blueprint for an unconditional holding environment.
Yes. The true ground of everything isn't sitting on a throne waiting to be petitioned so you can be let back in. It is the literal space from which nothing is ever expelled. Not your mess, not your failure, not the ugliest, least finished draft of who you are. And this isn't just a sentimental greeting card idea either.
That's structural.
Exactly. It's a structural reality.
Mm.
Think about the earth beneath your feet. If the ground withdrew every time it was displeased with what you built on it, it wouldn't be the ground.
It would just be another conditional, fragile relationship wearing a larger costume.
Exactly.
It's like the floor of a house. That analogy from the essay really helped me visualize it. Real security is exactly like the floor of your kitchen.
Yes.
You don't walk in every morning to make your coffee and jump up and down to test if the floor is still going to hold your weight. You don't need to stage a structural crisis to prove the floor is there.
Right. It simply exists.
And eventually, you stop noticing it entirely because there is nothing left to check.
That is the unglamorous, beautiful signature of real devotion. There is no private percentage of your daily attention being spent calculating someone else's temperature,
Yeah, trying to figure out what version of good enough is required today to keep the floor from giving way.
Exactly. The ground doesn't tremble every time you make a mistake.
But, and I think this is a massive caveat for anyone listening who is used to the drama, when you finally step onto that solid floor, it doesn't necessarily feel good at first, does it?
No, it really doesn't. It can feel incredibly disorienting. It can feel underwhelming. It can even feel deeply suspicious.
Because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Always. Because when you finally encounter real devotion, there is no chemical peak. There is no adrenaline crash to recover from, which means there is no massive rush of relief to mistake for depth.
Right.
There is no wound secretly scheduled to be reopened just so it can be performatively soothed again. If your nervous system has spent a lifetime being trained on crisis, safety is going to feel very, very boring at first.
It will feel like withdrawal.
It absolutely will.
Yeah. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, practically speaking? How do we actually rewire ourselves? We understand the evolutionary trap now. We see the cultural myths for what they are. And we know that real peace is supposed to feel like a boring, solid floor.
Yeah.
But when that craving for the drama hits, when you feel that desperate physical urge to collapse, apologize, and perform contrition just to get the warmth back,
Yeah.
how do you stop?
The hardest truth to accept here is that the ache for that dramatic reconciliation is not going to disappear just because you now have intellectual insight into it.
You can't just think your way out of it.
You cannot outthink a nervous system response. The nervous system updates its programming the exact same way it learned the bad habit in the first place.
Through repetition.
Through repetition.
So it all comes down to a tiny moment of choice.
Yes. In the midst of the silence or the argument, there is a specific instant where the pattern becomes visible. And it usually doesn't arrive as a logical thought. It arrives as a somatic ache.
Like a physical feeling.
You might feel it as a tightness in your chest or a lump in your throat. A physical, undeniable pull toward the version of closeness that requires you to collapse.
Right.
The victory in that moment is not in making the ache magically vanish. The victory is simply in noticing it.
Just recognizing it.
Recognizing it for what it actually is, your nervous system reaching out for a familiar drug. And in that half second of recognition, you have a choice. You choose, just for today, not to feed it.
You choose not to perform. You choose not to shrink. You just sit in the agonizing discomfort of not chasing the relief.
And you let the discomfort wash over you. You stop mistaking the craving for the drug for the presence of real love. And you do that over and over and over again.
It sounds exhausting.
It is slow, it is frustrating, and it is entirely unglamorous. But that is how you actually build the steady, reliable thing that will still be standing a decade later.
Wow. This has been such a profound journey. We've moved from understanding how our ancient evolutionary panic tricks us into equating survival with love to spotting the pop culture myths that romanticize our anxiety.
Yeah, it's a lot to unlearn.
And we finally learned that true devotion, the real sturdy ground of belonging, doesn't require us to be small in order to be held. It is just an ordinary Tuesday where you are fully known and nothing is owed.
It is the ultimate accents of the leash.
Before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over on your own. It builds right on the themes of nervous system manipulation we've been exploring today.
Hmm.
If our nervous systems are this easily trained on the crisis and relief cycle by our personal relationships and our media, take a look at our modern attention economy.
Oh, that's a great point.
Think about your habits. Think about doom scrolling. Think about the 24-hour news cycle or the invisible algorithms running your social media feeds. How much of our daily technology is quietly hijacking this exact same biological vulnerability?
It's all the same mechanism.
Exactly. Are these platforms constantly simulating a global crisis, casting us out into a state of isolated anxiety, just to offer a tiny, predictable dopamine hit of relief to welcome us back in?
Just manufacturing that relief.
It's something to really think about the next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling, waiting for the tension to break. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking for the real, unglamorous floor beneath your feet, and remember, true peace, it never requires you to hold your breath, waiting for the exhale.